Most people don't change because they think they already know what's right, what matters, who they are. And to be fair, that's what we're taught to do. Pick a side, defend it, stay consistent. But life doesn't work like that. The longer you pay attention, the more things stop being so clear. Strong opinions soften, certainty fades, and the questions get better. Not easier, just better. Because somewhere between what you believe and what's actually true, there's a gap, and most people avoid it. That's where the work is. That's where you learn. That's where you grow. That's where things start to make sense again. Not perfectly, not permanently, but enough to move forward. This isn't about being right. It's about seeing clearly and being willing to change your mind when it matters. So don't bet against the ones who question things, especially when they question themselves. This is Chasing Common Ground.
So welcome back to the Chasing Common Ground podcast. I have brought back Randy King. I can't remember what year it was last time he was on the show, but he is a fan favorite. When I published that episode, I had a lot of our mutual friends in Edmonton, a bunch of dudes, people usually with some involvement in some form of martial arts, or they knew you from a job or some past experience, but the energy that you carry and the impact that you have on people it stands out. So it's always good to have you. It's always good to have a conversation.
Oh, I appreciate that, because I don't know what people are saying about me out there on the street. So I'm glad it's good. We're enjoying my energy.
Well, it's funny because I feel like we can spend a lot of our lives kind of worried about like how other people perceive us. And then we start to realize how fruitless that is. Like, people could be completely wrong with us, but very outspoken in their opinions.
Yes.
And it can snowball, or we can just learn to manage how we kind of carry ourselves, or what we allow to absorb, what we don't allow to absorb. And I think that's like the perfect segue for today's conversation, because I find that the world is so polarized and people are looking for reasons to argue with each other, which is a huge reason why the show is now called Chasing Common Ground. I recently saw something on the internet. It was something along the lines of, I think David Attenborough was quoted saying it, but it was a meme. So I don't know if he actually said it or if somebody said he said it, but it was essentially that he had spent so much of his life watching it pull apart that the next generation has an opportunity to bring it together, and it could be so much better for it. Now, that was paraphrased, and like I say, I don't know if it was his actual quote, but I thought that the sentiment and the message behind it was really good, which is why I kind of want to talk to you about how you may feel that de-escalation techniques in self-defense may have shifted in the last 5 years.
Absolutely. Great question. So de-escalation is definitely one of the most underdeveloped parts of a lot of people's self-defense strategy, right? Almost all self-defense training starts at what I call fight first mentality, as in I'm only defending myself when I'm in a fight, as opposed to going along the timeline, for the name of the book, going along the timeline of the self-defense situation. There's so many intersection points before things get physical, and de-escalation is definitely one of the most effective, like, last lines of defense before somebody decides to attack, right? And so I think your preface of it's getting harder and harder to find common ground is 100,000% true. And there's a bunch of factors that affect it. And there are people that are helping and there are people that are not helping that, right? But a lot of it is, the sad fact is, post-COVID, most people interact with everybody via the internet, right? The energy the government said stay inside is not the same energy they told us to go back into the world, right? And so people have different coping mechanisms, a lot of digital space and communications and Zoom meetings and all that sort of stuff. So when you exist online, you're kind of beholden to the algorithm, right? The algorithm tells you what to believe, what not to believe, and it finds whatever segment of population that agrees with you. And the best way to get attention on the internet is to be a bit of a stirrer of the pot, right? Because we're in an attention economy, and negativity biases humans' default mode. So using a negative hook, I'm using them right now, I'm not helping at the moment. Using a negative hook right now is how you get attention. And that is leading us to this we start to say what we hate before we say what we like, because that's how we relate to people now. And I think that's a huge cultural shift that's becoming very problematic. I told my daughter this. We were chatting. Me and my daughter have very, very deep conversations. And I think the biggest shift for me was pre-internet, because I'm pretty old, right? I'm 45 years old. I grew up with the streetlight rule. And back then, you could assume if you met somebody who was aggressive or angry, they were just having a bad day. And you could assume that most people were good. But the internet kind of proved the opposite, which is, I know a lot of people are kind of, on purpose trying to clickbait and gain attention. So unfortunately, we are very monkey see, monkey do. And you're always practicing, right? You're either practicing what you want to do or you're reinforcing what you don't want to do if you're doing it. And if all of our interactions are negative and we get the best dopamine response from negative, that tends to transfer into our regular interactions and becomes pretty problematic.
Mm-hmm. Something that comes up for me, and we can transpose this to an international scale, because I'm thinking about the Yegwave account.
Sure.
And I'm sure that there are iterations that are the same if we were talking about Austin, Texas, or some other city in Europe or something like that.
Absolutely.
But I find that the culture and community that it curates is not only self-limiting, like it causes people to create misconceptions of how interactions would go. It causes people to misunderstand all kinds of different people. Even people, I saw an image of somebody that looked like me. I could have a misconception of who that person could be without knowing anything about them. And so I'm just curious to see what your stance is on accounts like that. For myself, I talk to all my in-person clients and I'm like, hey, I wouldn't follow accounts like that if I were you. Because if I'm looking out for your health and wellness, that is one of the pillars to it. And it might sound a little bit woo-woo, but it's like, this is kind of one of the ways that I can keep people on track. So what's your stance on that?
Yeah, no, I think social media hygiene needs to be discussed, I think, in a lot of places, right? There's lots of countries right now trying to ban it for people under 16. I 1000% agree with that. There's no way a teenager can get a high self-esteem when they get the best of the world of whatever they want to do constantly streamed to their phones, right? You used to be able to be attractive or talented or the best singer in your town. And it was, you're the best. You could build that confidence. And now you're like, well, I'm not the best because I have 800 other singers from all over the world coming to me, right? And people don't understand yet that social media is a highlight reel. It's not a behind the scenes, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, book is going out right now pretty well. I'm doing a lot of shipping. Everyone's, it sounds like the book is selling well. I'm like, the book's not even out yet. Don't let social media trick you. The pre-sale copies to my friends went very well, but that's everybody's book, right? Yeah. You really have to take everything with a grain of salt, right? Don't just, I think the biggest thing is people need to, instead of react, they need to respond. Mm-hmm. You need to take in whatever information you're going to get. If you're following, don't follow accounts like, Yegway. Don't follow purposefully hateful, lying accounts that are only showing the worst. That's going to affect you psychologically. But anything you consume, take a breath before you respond. Just think, because there's so many times I've seen very intelligent people share something false because of their knee-jerk emotional reaction, right? So when we talk about de-escalation, kind of going back to the original question, one of the number one rules, the first rule of de-escalation is de-escalate yourself first. I cannot calm you down when I'm screaming at you, right? I cannot find common ground if I feel like I'm a victim or I'm in the bad spot. I'm not saying this doesn't happen, but you have to come from a rational place, right? We like to talk about the brain in three pieces. There's your survival brain, your tribal friendship brain, then your human brain. 90% of the time, we're in the on our team brain, that tribal brain, right? Does this line up with my values of who I identify as and who my group identifies as? And we tend to just share those without actually critically thinking at all. There's a lot of kind of old school rules, but the 72-hour rule is a little bit outdated, but I really believe in that. If you see something, take a couple of days before you respond, because there's going to be new information. You're not going to fall into the clickbait traps of people trying to go left versus right or whatever else. Now, I understand we live in a world where there's an event that happens basically every day. So waiting 72 hours might not be possible, but the more time you can take and the more information you can receive, the better decision you're going to make. And also, you don't need to have an opinion on everything. You can just let some stuff go past your radar if it's not within your wheelhouse, right? A lot of us are creating where there's an old saying, it's called building the plane while you take off, right? It's like, we're not really finished, but we're going to kind of make it. A lot of people are in that escalated tribal emotional state, are building their opinion on the fly with bad information, where they have consistent core values that they're not experiencing because of this knee-jerk reaction. So number one, especially existing online, de-escalate yourself first. If something is making you feel an emotion, you're not in your rational brain. It's as simple as that. I use love as an example. I'm very happily married. I'm in love. This is great. But also, love is predictable. We make it fancy and special because we want to impart our own experiences, right? Oh, he brought me these type of flowers. You're like, yes, they brought you a courting gift. That is part of the thing, right? But we tend to make it personal. We're also taking these social media posts personal when these people don't even know you. And you're getting so angry at people you're never going to meet in person. I'm an old man and I'm not in the best shape I've ever been in my life. So the amount of people who dequalify my opinion because I'm a chubbier man is hilarious to me, because I'm never going to meet those people. And I also don't care about that person's opinion. If they're literally judging a book by the cover, I don't want to be dealing with you, right? So you don't need to have an opinion on everything. But if you do want to be out there online, take a couple deep breaths first. Get a couple different sources of information. There used to be a time, I know people who exist online will not understand this, but before the internet, a reporter used to have 2 separate verified sources before they could run a story. That is not the case anymore. People can just make up wild slander and then it moves through the news cycle, right? So you need the number one skill for de-escalation is learning to calm yourself down, get yourself in your critical thinking brain, and realize what is the goal of this interaction.
I want to pause this conversation for a second, and it's not to shift gears, but just to acknowledge something. The store at store.invigoratetraining.com isn't really just about merch. It's my way of staying connected with this community of people who's followed along with me throughout my 20s and now into my mid-30s. You'll find women's fitted racerbacks with the line, "I might look normal, but deep down I question why I agreed to do 40 push-ups per day." Because sometimes humor comes after you've done the work. And there's the legacy CL gear, the hat and the toque that you see me wearing all the time, along with t-shirts that say, "Don't bet against the quiet ones." Because often the underdogs are the biggest game changers in life. There are custom shoes that I designed myself with the mantra, "Stay kind, stay strong, keep going," built right into the design. And there's also Park Far Away Club stickers and reusable bags for all your shopping needs. Additionally, I've created a line of fully human apparel, a reminder that self-improvement isn't just a one-size-fits-all template, it's personal. If we were all the exact same, we'd never truly be human. All pricing on the website is in Canadian dollars, shipping is inclusive, and your orders are often shipped domestically. This helps avoid tariffs or extra fees. This store exists because of you, and my career exists because of you. I'm genuinely grateful you're here. I'm grateful for all the people who work with me, and I'm so excited that we get to build something meaningful together. If anything here resonates, you can find it at my store at store.invigoratetraining.com. And thank you for being part of my world. Yeah. It's wild that you bring up the old rules for writing in media. I did general studies at Graham McEwen for about a year and a bit, and I dabbled in so many different courses, but the ones that I think probably helped me out the most, and I still remember lots of parts of, were the public relations and human resources courses I took. One of the public relations ones taught us basically how important it was and how much of a bias the different news media has, and how many different video, print, digital, everything, all of it was under one umbrella. So one person they could sway the storyline and it would continue down the chain, no matter what the realities may be. And it could just be something like shifting the title. It could be something like shifting the phrasing, like how they described someone in what they did, rather than just saying it more literally. It was almost like they would say it implying something that wasn't true. And ever since then, even if I emotionally disagree with something or some source, I still go and I listen to it.
Exactly.
During the most polarizing political times, if I think that one side just doesn't know what they're talking about, I still listen to them because I need to comprehend it on some level. And then on top of that, I also realize that if I can find a source that bypasses the bias, so I think it's a CPAC channel or something that takes us right to Parliament or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'll watch that from time to time. And then that's what shows us how much the model to which social media is built on sways public opinion.
Yes.
Because I could talk eloquently and somebody could take a soundbite of what I said and make everybody disagree with me just simply based on that soundbite. And we're seeing that on a massive scale. And then the other thing that I've learned, which hopefully helps people be more discerning, you and I and everybody else listening to this and watching this has the capability to go onto Facebook and look at the spending budget of different businesses and political parties. And so we have the ability to see that a political party spent 20 million and then they had another aligned account. It could be like an MLA's account. It could be like any level of government, any figure in government can have a business account tied to Facebook, but we can look up the spending of each. We can look up the spending of the influencers if they do Facebook ads and stuff like that.
I didn't know.
It's wild. And so infusing that into our thought process is very important because it helps us understand to what degree is that person's soundbite being leveraged. So it's not that we're seeing it because of organic momentum. We're seeing it because they infused a substantial amount of money. Whereas before we would have only heard about it if it was popular enough that our neighbors were talking about it. Now we're hearing about it because somebody's budget made it so.
Right.
And in doing so, it's kind of like that concept they talk about with flooding the zone, where they just give us so much stuff that we can't even handle or process what we should be paying attention to. Very similar concept. So that's why I like talking about this on the podcast, because it's kind of my way of at scale empowering people to be a lot more discerning in how they're filtering information, and then in turn, hopefully taking care of themselves, taking care of their family, looking out for their neighbors. And like when I say neighbors, I mean, you probably meet some new people who aren't quite like you. They probably have good food. But like, that's the thing is food connects people. So I'm going to do a fun segue here. Because I found that I've made so many strong friendships over sharing a meal. And the interesting thing is you can't share a meal over a Zoom call.
No.
You actually have to go traveling and share a meal. And I've been doing a lot of that, probably about 2 to 3 trips a year. And so I'm curious, what have been the top 2 meals that you've shared with somebody, and what stood out about those meals and that person?
Top 2, what a great question. And I'm not just using that to buy time. That is a really good question. I didn't see it. That was great. I'm very lucky I work hard. I don't know, whatever it is, but I'm very blessed that I have really cool mentors in my life, really strong business owners and martial artists and whatever. So I have a guy named Rory Miller. He's my mentor. He's written 9 books in the space. I'm through the same publisher as him. And that our first interaction, it was a meal and drinks. A lot of my earlier years, there was libations involved in what I did. I don't drink anymore, but back then I did very much so. So I remember that dinner because it was just interesting because it was me and I was probably 27, 28, just a young kid. And I had this mentor, this guy that I'd read all his books. I didn't know him yet. right? It was him, and then it was this other legend in the field that I read all of his books, and then a SWAT officer for a SWAT team that I currently work with. And I just met them all at this seminar, and they invited us to, if you've ever been to a martial arts seminar, there's always the after the dinner, and you get to sit at certain tables, right? It's a little hierarchical, right? This one wasn't. They're just like, hey, you've been here for 2 days, come sit with us. And I think what stood out is, and I see this consistently, is people say don't meet your heroes. It's not don't meet your heroes. It's don't think your heroes are perfect, right? Because people are people, no matter how good their book is, no matter how smart they seem, no matter how good they come off on the highlight reel of social media. We're all going through stuff, right? There's baggage, there's other things going on. And so I just remember nothing levels the playing field more than everybody eating and drinking and ordering at the same table, right? Whether you're the president of whatever country or a common person, if you're at the same table, the conversation is very equaled out. And that's what I think the biggest takeaway was from that first meal with them, was like, oh, these are just smoking and joking dummies like me. They're just further along on their career, right? They're having a really good time. And so just having access to that for the first meal, I think that one stands out to me. There's a picture I have it somewhere on social media where you can tell somebody's telling a story. They're like mid-pose and everybody's just dying laughing. And that's one of my most precious pictures, because all those people became, one of the guys in there was in my wedding party. They all became my best friends. And so that was really cool. And I think the second meal that was very memorable to me, it was when I was in Germany teaching. I'm not trying to humble brag here. It's part of the story. But I was in Germany, and I wasn't in Berlin or Cologne or Munich. I was in a town called Gummersbach, which is, I was talking at a university there. It's the middle of nowhere in Germany. It's still pretty cool. But English wasn't as common as Berlin or Munich. And so I very much remember the feeling of helplessness of realizing that I couldn't read German. And my host, who obviously spoke German, he was from Gummersbach, he was like, what do you want? And like a little kid, I had to point at the menu. I'm like, I want this one, right? That stands out to me as I was flown thousands of miles as an expert to speak at this university about conflict communication, but I couldn't order a sandwich at a restaurant, right? It was a very interesting juxtaposition of, oh, everybody thinks I'm so smart. I can't read here, right? So it's that was interesting. I think those are the two dinners that stand out the most to me. I tell that Germany story all the time.
Yeah. I like that. I've definitely experienced that whole, I want this one to scroll a lot of times. I'll tell a side story just to add some color to the conversation. A few years ago, I went on a backpacking trip with my friend to Costa Rica. My first mistake was I booked the flight into the wrong major city in Costa Rica. So then I had to take a bus across country. And so anytime they'd be at the front of the bus making an announcement, and I just listened for the word bathroom to kind of like book your vibe. I was like, is the bus broken down, or are we stopping for 10 minutes? So I'm like, okay, we're stopping for 10 minutes. And then once I finally got to my destination and met up with my friend, then he took me to the grocery store and they had this sort of cafeteria set up.
Yeah.
And then I was like looking at the menu and I was okay, I get it. If I go to McDonald's or something, I can say like combo number 4.
Right.
And like that could work. And so I'm looking at this menu that they have at the grocery store and I'm like, if I say numero cuatro, por favor, I think that's going to work.
Oh, yeah.
So my friend is just sitting at the table watching me from a distance. And then I walk up and I'm like, numero cuatro, por favor. And then they're telling me how much it was.
Yeah.
And then I say, numero cuatro, por favor. He's just like laughing at me and he's, Chris, you have to pay them. I'm like, oh no. And then like their currency, I think it was like in denominations of like 1,000.
Sure.
Which like my naive brain, I'm like, 1,000 is a lot.
Right.
Not thinking that it's like the equivalent of like maybe $10 or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So then once again, overwhelmed. But then through that experience, it just gave me what I think is like essential experience that a lot of people need. And a lot of people have it, but a lot of people don't. And so anytime that people find themselves to travel like outside of the beaten path, like I have sort of this little like chip on my shoulder where I'm like, I'm not doing all-inclusive resorts. You don't learn anything there.
Sure, I get that.
Like, I know that there's a time and a place where a person just kind of wants to sit back, not do anything.
Yeah.
But I always like to some degree, within safe parameters, sort of like live like a local, like at least do my own grocery shopping. And if I have to be like mindful of like where I go and when I go to those places, that makes sense. Or just like even staying out of places that really there's no room for tourism or anything that I can respect that. But it's just I've learned so much more, and usually most of the learning moments come from me looking like a fool.
Only time. That's the only time you learn. You have to, if you want to actually grow and learn, you have to humble yourself. You have to.
Exactly. So let's dig into some examples of times that you've had to humble yourself to learn. Let's hear 2 examples of that.
Dude, constantly, man. Like I like to make the joke that like my career is the only career you can have with a lifetime of bad decisions. Like all I do is put myself in danger, and then people stab me about it. Then I talk about it. Then I teach. Like it's. I would not recommend this path for anybody else. There's much smarter ways to do what I've done. I think the one that always stands out to me the most that I talk about a lot is when I was transitioning. So my career, I've been in Edmonton a long time. I've been teaching a long time. I'm now at the point where like young kids who own schools, like, we know about you. That's crazy. And so when I was transitioning so KPC was my first gym. When it started as KPC Martial Arts, we had a mixed martial arts team. We were kind of training bouncers for like that bro social violence stuff. And then eventually I started getting more women students who just enjoyed the training. But they weren't really getting, I didn't know that at the time, but they weren't really getting what they needed. They were just using it as like a cardio program. So then I got hired to run this women's self-defense course. And I was like, I can do that. No problem. Don't need any training or research. So I show up and I literally teach them like a bouncer class. And then at the end of all of my courses, I do a debrief, right? So I ask, hey, what's one thing you took away from the class? I do it for lots of reasons. But number one is, what I am telling them landing? Right? Are the important, if nobody mentions what I think is the most important part of the seminar, I need to change the seminar. So I did the debrief, and basically the feedback was, this is not useful for us in any way whatsoever. We don't encounter fights like this. This is not the kind of crimes we are selected for. And I actually had to humble myself and be like, okay, look, you've already paid me for this. I'm going to do another seminar for free because you did not get the service you paid for. Let me go back and research and start to figure it out. So that alone is, I walked in as an expert. I owned a gym. People knew me. I was the first Krav Maga instructor in Edmonton, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, I know everything. And they're like, you don't know nothing about women's problems. I'm like, you're right. I don't. So then I went back, researched, and came back with basically the prototype of what I teach now. And it got rave reviews, right? So that is definitely the first time I've had to humble myself, I think. Second time, it happens all the time. I have an unlimited list of this. This could be the whole show. But I'm going to say that the another time that stands out when I was humble was I was younger, and I was trained to be a fighter before I got post-concussion syndrome. I have post-concussion syndrome, so I can't take a lot of shots to the head anymore. And I was dating this lady, and she was a yogi. She did yoga. And I remember being like, yoga, that's for old ladies and hippies. I would not fight. I'm so tough. And then she's, why don't you come to a class and try it out? I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'll just nap. And then I died. Like I was shaking and my body wasn't working. Then she was like, so what do you think now, tough guy? I'm like, I have been accurately humbled. Thank you so much. So it kind of leads to you don't know what people do. And if you make these assumptions on what you see from pop culture media, social media, until you actually do the thing, you really shouldn't make any comments on the thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an important point. That's something like if I have a personal training client that's kind of talking about all the other stuff that they do, I've tried most fitness modalities. I've tried like the trampoline classes,
Right.
the Pilates, everything under the sun. And so I'm usually able to help them know that despite the fact that they're progressing in their strength as they should be, this different modality is going to be a different kind of a beast.
Yeah.
And whether is through the intensity, whether it's through like isolation exercises, like it's going to humble them. And if I was with them, it would humble me too.
Right.
And then I'm like, so just do your best and see if you can progress in it. If you're having fun, just keep going and see if you can get better at that. But it's going to be a totally different beast.
That's you at jiu-jitsu, right? I'm sure it wasn't like you probably walked in, I'm a trainer, no problem. And you next day you're like, what muscle is this? This hurts, right? I just got back into jiu-jitsu recently. I'm still pretty spotty, but when I have time, I'm there. And honestly, I was like running. I'm like, oh, my cardio's up. I'll be fine. The next day I was like, oh, what are these? So, right? Like you think you can come in prepared, but the modality will change and challenge differently, right? I'm sure that's exactly what you experienced.
I want to pause here for a second because this connects directly to the kind of conversations that we have on this show. Chasing common ground has never been about hacks, shortcuts, or chasing attention. It's about long-term thinking, craft, and building something that actually lasts. And the same philosophy is why I built my podcast course. It's about fundamentals and foundations. How to start a podcast, how to structure it, how to stay consistent, and how to build simple workflows so your show fits into your life instead of competing with it. The course is updated constantly with gear reviews, standard operating procedures, AI tools, and best practices. It's not because things change fast, but because clarity matters. I want to share a quick clip from someone many of you already know about, Andrew Coates. He's a good friend of mine, and he is the host of Live Free and Diet Hard, a published writer, speaker, and longtime coach. Here's what he had to say.
I'm going to give a shout to my producer because he's a beauty. Chris Little, he's the one who does all the back-end stuff. He does all the slides. He's the one who puts together all the ads. And I couldn't do this stuff without him. He's great. He's got his own podcast, but he's also got courses, and he will answer your questions if you guys are literally interested in podcasting. He's great at this stuff. So go check him out. Just search Christian Little on Instagram. I follow him. You'll find him. He's super.
If you're thinking about starting a podcast, or you already have one and want it to feel simpler, more intentional, and more sustainable, you can learn more at christianlittle.com/podcast course. And as a thank you to listeners of Chasing Common Ground, you can save $50 with the code Common Ground, one word, all caps, at checkout. Pricing is in Canadian dollars. Thank you, and now let's get back to the podcast.
It is exactly what I experienced, and I have to admit, I have paused my jiu-jitsu journey, which makes me sad, because it's cool to learn from all the different people, and like you get life experiences from people, just like in a spar on the mat kind of thing. But they talk about like seasons of life, which I think is important to talk about on the podcast because a lot of people kind of brush over it. And so for me, my current season of life is kind of like getting myself set up so that like my next 7 years is especially stable or especially structured. And there's a lot of times when I'll take time aside for family and friends that I kind of have to carve out, leaving me not much time left.
Yes.
But I still want to make sure that people understand that they should try things like jiu-jitsu.
For sure.
And I can also foresee a season in my life where right now I'm 34, maybe when I turn 40 or something, maybe I'll be like, okay, it's time to put that blue belt back on and see what we can do.
Blue belt curse, baby. Very common. Get a blue belt. I'll take a break.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to be that guy. It was like one of those things where I was like, I'm not going to be that guy. And I think I wore that blue belt for at least more than a year, maybe close to 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then it was just, I was like, okay, something's got to give because I'm trying to be everyone. Yeah, everything for everyone. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of people are finding themselves in that place right now.
Oh, yeah.
And so then they almost need to run their life through some kind of a hierarchy system or something that helps them filter through what knobs to push, what levers to pull, what to do, what's important. Yeah. And I know I have a thought process for that, but I'd love to learn more about yours without me saying anything so that you get to do it just clean slate.
Sure. So ambition is my trait. I think it's a problem, but I'm always trying to level up to the next level, right? So I went from literally a goon to teaching to first whatever, then I traveled, now book deal, right? Because I got to brag a little bit. This is not self-published. Somebody bought this, right? This is a real international, which is crazy to me. And I make the joke that if my English teacher saw this, I'm sure she'd start drinking because I was the worst. If it wasn't for editors, this book would not exist. This is my mental vomit, and then professionals help me massage it into what it is. But I think my seasons of life are always kind of dictated by what my next level is, right? So right now, it's the book. Everything I'm doing is book related. Why am I not training right now? Because I'm doing interviews. Why am I not? Just because of this. But what I'm noticing, this is actually a very poignant question because I'm very introspective with my life. And I'm 45 now. I see a lot of gray in the beard when I look in the mirror, start thinking about mortality and all that sort of stuff, right? Nothing ever, I think people think that there's a place they're going to get to and then things are going to get easy. And I don't think that's true. As I raise through the ranks of whatever, right? Like I'll get a little bragging here, but I'm the executive consultant for a SWAT team in the US, right? They've hired me multiple times. I'm building high-level training for them in Minnesota, where the Civil War was kind of starting for a little bit. I work with that team. So when we're going through it, that was my focus that season of life. And as I grow and I go, I expect the next level to be like organized and professional. And I'll tell you right now, nobody knows what they're doing, at least not to the ceiling that I've got to. Even my publisher, I'm like, what about this? Well, what a good idea. I'm like, good idea. You've been doing this for 20 years. What do you mean that's a good idea? So it's been very interesting to see that you're never done, right? It's never, oh, once I get this blue belt or once I get the book out, it's not like the book is out and I can sit back. Now I got to promote it. Now I have to whatever, right? So you're always scaling up. And if you follow me on social media, everybody, my life likes to test me. That's what it likes to do a lot to me. It likes to close things or whatever, fires, et cetera, et cetera. And so I got into a depressive state for probably, I would say, 3 years. I was not myself. I was not happy, gregarious. Everybody knows me because I used to be out on the town all the time. Randy, I really hid and figured stuff out. And how I've reframed this in my head now is, this isn't me being picked on. This is the universe testing me if I'm ready for the next level, right? Because you can't handle this, dude. How are you going to handle the next level? So I'm trying to take it in like, this is a blessing. I'm not a religious person, but very much in the God only gives you the battles you can handle. While I don't believe that's true, I'm really trying to make that my mantra. Because as I proceed, right, things aren't going to get easier. And this is where people jump off, right? It's, oh, hey, all of this is going well. I think I'm here, but now I'm tired and I jump off. And so for me, reframing that is important, but it only works because of the seasons of life, right? I have 2 businesses. I have a gym here called Institute of Modern Defense that I'm not at very often. I pay people there. And then I have my book touring career that I'm going back on the road in July. I told them there, I'm like, hey, we can work on this business up until this date. But then my next season of life, as you said, is I'm in a book hole. I'm signing books. I'm sending books. I don't know if you follow me on socials, but I stamped all the original books with this coffee cup because it's getting more famous than me on my videos. So there's just extra work you put in. So I think it's okay to have those segments and focus because like you said, the generalist approach, it doesn't seem to be working and everybody's getting not good at anything.
Yeah. Something that you mentioned that kind of stood out to me because I sense myself doing it whenever I can see the next level coming is sort of like a preparation for that next level, kind of like preparing yourself to have the bandwidth to handle it. And it doesn't have to be like a polished process. It doesn't have to be a structured process, but there is probably a process.
Yeah.
Now, for the sake of helping paint a picture, I'll kind of give an example of some of my processes. Over the last decade, like earlier in that decade, I would always go on what I would call a vision quest.
Okay.
For lack of a better expression, it was just like I just needed to go on a long drive and then go on a long walk and then just drive and walk until I had thought all the thoughts that could be thought. And I would do that as I was preparing for a certification exam or as I was preparing to write a resignation letter or as I was just reflecting on something that felt like a big barrier. And I think I got my marks back from the NATE PFT program. I took like half of it and then took some certifications to supplement that.
Yeah.
So I've received a lot of big news when I go on these walks and stuff.
Yeah.
And then as time has gone on, I've noticed that what I used to do has had to shift. And so now it's like I'll actually just prioritize little visits with my parents or just daily phone calls because I'm like, okay, if I take the time that I used to dedicate to this very long drawn out process and then put it into something that feels like it's like a limited opportunity, I want to get all the advice that I can from my parents while I still can. And then additionally to that, in the times that I've already talked to them and I'm still looking for answers, That's when I'll share my process with other people, and I'll go on my long walks like with a friend.
Yeah.
But I'll often, just like you said, you have mentors. I have some mentors where you would be like, how did he find this person? Yeah, I love it. And so they like going on walks. So I'll go on walks with them and we'll talk things through. We'll put things out on the table, and then they'll kind of give me like a logical response. If I'm like, okay, I want to tackle this next project, they'll be like, okay, well, why don't you cover the cost of that project? Build a plan for how you'd cover the cost of that project, so you don't have to stress about the cost while you are implementing the project. I'm like, dude, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I wish I would have thought of that.
Yes.
That said, what have you historically done as you're preparing yourself for the next level?
So my process looks insane. My wife loves to make fun of it. She calls it my beautiful mind moment. So I'm a verbal processor. Like, again, I'm not a writer, I'm a talker. And then somebody made this look good. So I cannot spell most of the words that I say. But I need to chat my way through stuff. That's how I process information, right? So if you give me, it's very beneficial as a coach because I can process and give you the answer at the same time, but we both discovered the answer together, but it makes it seem like I always knew it, which I didn't. So it's a very good benefit for my career. But when my brain is constantly going, I'm always planning and whatever. And so my process, very simply, to get things out is I have a big 6-foot whiteboard in my garage, and I pace and I mumble and I write. And that's why it's my beautiful mind moment, right? So I'll be like, okay, so great example. I'm building a seminar around the book for the tour. So my garage right now looks insane because it's like coffee cups and blah, and then writing on that nobody understands but me because I'm making like these connections. And then I pace and I like talk my way through it. The reason why it sounds insane is what I cover is dark material. So you'll see me pacing, you hear like blah, 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 sexual assault, blah, 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 murder. My wife's okay, crazy, right? Because that's what I talk about. So my process is I first have to get it out, right? Once it's out, then I can edit, I can correct, I can do whatever. But if I try to just make it perfect immediately, it's never going to work out. I got to vomit it out and then create it. Like book writing, this is version 6. Version 1 is like Diaries of a Madman. Like version 6 is very polished and looks good.
Mm-hmm. So my next question is going to take us on a bit of an arc.
Okay.
Essentially, something that has come up a lot is there's those like posts where it's like, women beware of these dangers in parking lots, beware of that, like that $20 that was left on like the hood of the vehicle or the tape on the mirror, things like that. And it kind of correlates with what we talk about of how to make media stand out in making that hook and stuff.
That fear is a big one.
Then it sort of, something that's really important is that a person's day-to-day mindset kind of influences like how things happen, how they interact with people, their body language, all that stuff. So having heard some of the darkest stories that I'm sure that you've heard, and having the first-hand experience with what has truly happened and what has not just been talked about happening, what would be your tactical advice for women who listen to this show to keep them feeling like they have a sense of control no matter where they are, like as much as feasibly possible?
So number one, just like the news, and so this is going to be a little bit of a ramble, like always, sorry, but the news is about what is unique, not what is common, right? So the example I always give is, what do people think is more common, bar fights or serial killers? Obviously, it's bar fights, not a trick question. So the news focuses on outliers. It doesn't focus on what is common, right? So bar fights versus serial killers, there's obviously less serial killers, obviously more bar fights. But reporting bar fights isn't news. That's what's always happening. The serial killer is sensationalism. That's what the news is. Why I bring it up is this has bled into social media. So number one, ladies, you are not as vulnerable as the internet wants you to think you are. There are so many people out there trying to scare you into courses, trying to scare you into programs that won't actually help and don't replicate what the crimes actually look like. It's very much like tough guy stuff, but pink, right? Oh, we'll do Muay Thai, but wear pink shorts, so now it's for ladies, even though that's not really talking about what's going on. The other thing is, use your critical thinking brain. Humans are lazy by nature, including predators. So predators create this like complicated, convoluted, oh, I'll put a piece of tape on her car so she can do this. Why would they do that when they can just take a picture of your license plate with their camera phone? Right? You have to understand that people are making stuff up to scare you, but there's a logic to it. Criminals are lazy. If they weren't, they'd be doing something different, right? They want the easiest access to somebody. So stop worrying about what happens if a guy from behind has a garrote. That was a huge thing on TikTok for a while. I made fun of it, right? Look in your back seat, obviously, but if you see something weird on your car, just drive away.
Mm-hmm.
Drive away and take it off at home, right? But the odds of somebody using that when it's just easy for them to take a picture of you and take a picture of your license plate doesn't make any sense. So number one, think, is this an effective method to do what this person's trying to accomplish? Or are they just trying to scare you? 99% of the time, they're just trying to scare you. There's a guy I keep calling out on TikTok. He wears a police officer uniform, but I work with law enforcement. They don't interact with social media the way he does. So he's lying, but he's using con artists use costume and title all the time. That's their number one thing. Title, costume, con. This guy is conning people. So use your logic, right? We are not that different as people. There are way more similarities between us than there are differences, right? The Dexter-esque real-life serial killer is still, gets a bad tummy and has to put his jeans on one leg at a time, right? So if it's not something that makes sense to you, it probably won't make sense to them, right? So just be aware that 90% of the time people are trying to manipulate you. And the reason why is those videos do really well. If you want to be as aware as you possibly can, because there is issues, right? This isn't just for women. When it comes to self-defense, things aren't fair. It's not even weight classes or whatever. And 90% of self-defense exists in what I call the gray area, right? If somebody's punching you, you know what to do. You're not going to be in trouble, right? But if somebody's creeping on you or interviewing you or seeing if you're a victim, that's where people get in trouble. When it's very clear they're good or they're bad, that's easy to deal with. I deal with the maybe. Is this person setting me up for long term? Is this an interview? Are they doing what they're going to do? So the easiest thing you can do, honestly, it's in the book, but you can do this for free. You don't need to buy nothing for this. It's just stay curious when you're outside. So what I mean by that is don't be on your phone in transitional spaces. You could be on your phone on the bus if the bus is moving and you know who's on the bus. When the bus stops, look up, right? I'm not saying don't be on your phone. That's an insane thing to say in 2026. But when you are moving from your house to your car, don't be on your phone. When you're going down the stairs to the LRT, don't be on your phone, right? Wait till you're set and you're safe and then check it. That's just how it works. Keep it in your pocket. But awareness is key, right? When I say stay curious, the way that most people teach situational awareness is look for all the evil in the world. But if you're looking for all the evil, you're going to burn out mentally. You're going to get to a place where you think everything is evil. If you just stay curious, you're going to look for the good. You're going to see the good and you're going to see the bad, and you're not going to burn out. Not only are you going to notice that creep paying attention to you, but you're going to notice the new restaurant or the concert poster or those kids playing that remind you of your youth. And you can have some joy in this. Too many people are living in this fear-based mentality. I'm going to tell you right now, statistically speaking, the odds of you running into a self-defense situation, if you are lower middle class up in Canada, exceptionally low. You might run into a social situation you could talk yourself into. Often self is your hardest part of self-defense because of your ego, right? But the odds of you being selected, they drop as you get older, right? Up until like elder care. And as you get better in your life, people who have money leave their air-conditioned office, get in their alarmed car, and go to their house in the suburbs, right? So the odds of this happening are low, but if you just pay attention and enjoy the world, look around, check stuff out, you're going to see everything, including if there is something bad, and you can still enjoy your life. You're not worried about monsters under the bed or in the alley.
Exactly. Like, I think it's important just to help people kind of put things in perspective because, like, we only get this one life. And so it's kind of important how we curate our own headspace. And it's not to, like, downgrade things that are very serious and urgent. It's just more so like our body responds to our thoughts. Like we carry stress and our muscles respond to that stress. Our nervous system responds to that stress, and it can have a direct impact on quality of life. Now, one thing that I want to make sure we take some time to emphasize is as you've promoted the book on social media, you've talked about a distinction in the different ways that a person can get the book, some ways in which probably support you more than others.
Sure.
And I want you to kind of like build up a roadmap so that if somebody is wanting to get like a special edition or maybe a direct mail copy or whatever that is, what would that look like? And what would be the difference in somebody buying it if they live in Canada versus if they live in the US or anywhere else?
Sure. So right now, this got really simple. Before the book was released, I ordered 100 copies, thinking that would be enough books. It was not. So I ordered 100 copies of the book for a pre-sale that we had going on where you could buy it for me, get the special press signed copy. That has ended. So shipping and tariffs and all the stuff has made that an insane way to go. So the best way to get it is just to go. I would recommend go to your local bookstore. I would love you to support brick and mortar. So go to your local bookstore, request it. It's, again, fully published, internationally distributed. They can get it, no problem. It's not like a special weird order. Request it, comes in, and get it that way. That would be my ideal way to get it. If not, Amazon, Indigo, I prefer to use Indigo in Canada, Indigo or Amazon or whomever, you can get it delivered to you. And then if you want it signed, I have a couple of book signings happening here coming forward. So I have one at my gym, the Institute of Modern Defense, obviously. So May 16th, we're having a book signing at my gym, the Institute of Modern Defense here in Edmonton. May 30th, I'm at Empowered Self-Defense doing another book signing. And that's 1 to 3 at Empowered, 2 to 4 at Institute of Modern Defense. And then Daisy Chain Books is bringing me in for a safety event in June. More signings will be coming up. But yeah, get the book. The only thing that we would change is if you want any of the additional parts of the book, there's a workbook attached to it. And there's also a Q&A on the 20th of May. Go to randykinglive.com, click on the picture of the book, and that'll get you to where you can buy it and any additions that you're looking for.
I love it. So I have one last question for you. Hopefully the internet cooperates with us. And the question is, if you were to give one piece of advice to someone on how to live their life to the fullest in the most authentic way, what would that piece of advice be?
To live your life to the fullest in the most authentic way. I have 3 pillars of self-defense that I talk about: personal value, boundaries, and community. I think it's the first one. If you don't know yourself, you can't make any plans, right? Whether it's self-defense, you don't know what crimes you're going to be picked for. You don't know what things you need to train for. But when it comes to living your life to the fullest, if you don't know what you are, then you can't do your life, right? So find out, test yourself. Like you said, go talk to people. Maybe they have good food. Challenge yourself. Go to places where you're uncomfortable and see how you feel. It's okay if doing the thing doesn't work out for you, right? And you go back to your old ways, but at least you know those are real. So go, try it out. And then once you know yourself, I think everything else becomes much, much easier.
I love that. And I think that gives something for people to think about and hopefully take action on. And honestly, if people even have the slightest inkling of purchasing your book, I hope that they do. And I really like your suggestion of asking the local bookstore to order in, because that's what bookstores do. It's like a supply and demand thing. If somebody demands something, they're going to supply it, because that's how, if they have a guaranteed sale, they're going to order it in. So a lot of bookstores won't feel any kind of way about ordering in a book for a customer. So don't hesitate to ask a local small mom and pop shop bookstore to order in the book. I think that'd be a great way to support everybody and to support a lot of different local economies. But with that said, Randy, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me, man. This is great.